as a member of this very committee, sat down on a lower part of the dais, and I was here when then Secretary Hank Paulson appeared. He sat right out in front. I remember Cleaver was to my left, I believe, and Scott was to my right. The secretary wanted $700 billion. He had approximately, I thought, 5 pages asking for $700 billion. I've since read that it was 3 pages. Be that as it may, $700 billion to bail out what were called exotic products at the time. $700 billion. Well, as you can well imagine, my constituents were up in arms. They were calling me by the hundreds, demanding that I vote against a $700 billion bailout. Being the good steward that I am, I voted against it. And as I stood in the cloakroom and I could see the tabulation of votes, there also was a monitor, television monitor, and I could see the monitor indicating that the vote was failing, and the stock market was directly proportional to what was happening with the vote. As the bill failed, the stock market was going down. The next day, my constituents were calling by the hundreds. What is wrong with you? You voted against the bailout. My 401k is now at risk. I learned an important lesson. Do what you think is in the best interest of your constituents, even when they may disagree. This hearing is taking place because I think it's in the best interest of my constituents that we get a better understanding what we're dealing with. I remember Secretary Bernanke. I have a statement from him that I'd like to read, and I'll do this quickly. Here's what he said. He said, this is Chairman Ben Bernanke, former Federal Reserve Chairman, that the $182 billion bailout of American International Group made him angrier than anything in the recession. AIG took risk with unregulated products like hedge funds, I'm paraphrasing, while using cash from people's insurance policies. He said the government had no choice but to bail it out. Who knew AIG was the glue holding the world together, the global order together?
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. Now, I put in a small clip this afternoon on my first video. America on fire. Will crypto frenzy lead to financial independence and early retirement or financial ruin? And this is the U.S. House Committee of Financial Services. And that is definitely a title. And listening to over 2 hours of them speaking, no one says anything about the fourth industrial revolution. No one says anything on why we had the 2008 crisis. Crypto just all of a sudden have to come about. It laid the foundation, and that's the reason why we're here now. Remember what Anthony Sutton stated. The New World Order wants total control. We know China has that control. That's the reason why they're going to lead us into the fourth industrial revolution. Social credit. Cryptocurrencies, all your privacy is out the window. Drones, robots, algorithms that take humanity out of the economy, so therefore you don't have any control. Remember the slaves. Even though they're slaves, even though they're sheep, they still control the economy. Unions are still powerful, the ones that we have left. Once they bring in the machines, the machine learning, the algorithms, all that is out the window. And Tether comes up again. After all this time, guys, at $62 billion, now all of a sudden there's issues with Tether. And I've been over the Attorney General in New York, stating all the fraud that she saw, but they weren't going to do anything. Because we know regulation, once it comes, 99% of these cryptos are out the window, and only 1% is going to be remaining. Anytime USDC gets bought up, they're in good standing. We know, because it's Goldman Sachs. Because we know when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Topic that's been on the minds of many of us. The issue of crypto assets is so important to us because we must understand what the financial marketplace of the future will look like. Digital assets present an exciting new frontier with the potential to bring the unbanked into our economy. In fact, 12.2% of Latinos and 13.8% of Black households were unbanked in 2019 compared to only 2.5% of white households. This is not the first time I've discussed that, and I'll continue to discuss it. While cryptocurrency is a new frontier, we must be cautious to make sure that we protect consumers from any avoidable risks. We need to bring the disenfranchised Americans to the financial fray, but we must also look at the bigger picture to make sure that we do not inadvertently allow a system to grow that grants too much market power to a few decision makers. It's our job as lawmakers to protect the consumers from financial abuses. This includes protecting the sovereignty of the U.S. dollar. We cannot allow anyone to compete with our U.S. dollar. Without a sovereign dollar that represents the primary form of currency in this country, we risk destabilizing our financial markets, and I would also suggest that it would destabilize global markets. We must protect the value and merits of the U.S. dollar, both in cash and digital form. Stable coins such as Facebook's diem prevented sovereignty risk to our domestic currency. In other words, there is a risk of these stable coins replacing the U.S. dollar and undermining the Federal Reserve's ability to perform its critical functions as a central bank. The World Economic Forum has warned its member countries of this risk, and the Bank for International Settlements has urged countries to form their own central bank digital currencies so they can offer access but still protect the sovereignty of their currencies. Last Congress, I introduced a bill to regulate managed stable coins as securities. Pegging them to a currency without proper regulation, like Facebook has done with Diem, is a step forward, but it does not address all the risk. Ms. Goldstein, I wanted to start with you. How urgent is this need for regulating stable coins and protecting the U.S. dollar?
Congresswoman, thank you for the question. I think stablecoins it's an urgent need for regulators to look into them. Thankfully, we've already had state attorneys generals looking at the problem. Letitia James in New York has looked at Bitfinex, which operates the Tether stablecoin, and they've recently reached a settlement, and so Tether, you can no longer buy Tether in the state of New York. But I think there are a lot of questions about what is Tether actually backed by. They recently had to disclose a number of their reserves, which included commercial papers and cash-like products, but they had very little actual cash. They had some commodities. They had some other digital assets. And I think, there was recent reporting, I believe it was in the Financial Times, where they asked some of the large banks, who tend to be one of the major counterparties for commercial paper, and they said they hadn't done any business with Bitfinex, so who are they doing business with? I think this is an opportunity to make sure that stable coins are actually based on something, right? And we're not just relying on faith that it's actually pegged to some denomination of the U.S. dollar or another currency. And I think one perhaps way to approach that would be to have central banks issue central bank digital digital currencies.
Idea. Look, I won't spend long on Mr. Sherman's remarks, but China is building the creepiest surveillance tool in history. We should absolutely not emulate them. The whole fact that China is doing that is why we should be embracing decentralized distributed ledger technology that is more secure and does protect privacy. We could actually go further to defending freedom and restoring our Fourth Amendment constitutional protections in the financial sector by embracing the potential of this technology, not by being hostile to it. The third-party doctrine has annihilated the whole concept of privacy. And yes, we absolutely should keep the country safe. I could spend a lot longer, but I'm reminded of Proverbs 26:4, so I won't spend longer on his comments. But Ms. Sue, your testimony is the only one that I saw that discussed Tether at length. I'd like to delve into that for a moment. And Ms. Goldstein, you spoke around the same topic. Last month Tether revealed the breakdown of its reserves. In their disclosure, we learned that nearly 50% of its reserves are held in unspecified commercial paper of unknown quality. I looked at a few constant net asset value funds or liquidity funds held by larger banks to see how their composition compares to Tether's. While these funds are not a part of the crypto market, they are targeted for investors with surplus cash deposits who seek liquidity from their investments. Thus, they serve a similar function to Tether or other stablecoins. What I found when I looked into these liquidity funds was that commercial paper accounted for around 25 to 30% of their underlying reserves in the net asset value funds. Additionally, we know the quality of those commercial paper holdings, and it's disclosed.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.